Hi, this is Gene Monterastelli, the editor of TappingQA.com. And one thing that happens when people are first introduced to tapping is they get really excited at how quickly tapping works. That they can get rid of a craving in under 90 seconds or get rid of a headache in just a few minutes. And even though tapping is really, really quick when it comes to knocking things out, it isn't something that always happens in an instant. Now, it might be a lot faster than other forms of traditional care, but still, it doesn't mean that it's going to be in 3 or 4 or even 10 minutes that an issue is going to go away. Oftentimes, lifelong issues that have knit their way into every fabric of our being is going to take a little more time to release, and we're going to want to make sure the healing process happens in a way that's safe for us. So today what I have is an interview with my buddy Rick Wilkes. What we do is we talk about the healing process and making sure that we go through the healing process in a way that's not only lasting, but is also safe as we're doing it. As a reminder, you can download this interview and over 100 other interviews by visiting tappingqa.com/podcast, and I hope you enjoyed today's interview with Rick. Rick Wilkes runs Thriving Now, and in just the last 6 years, he's worked with over 1,500 clients in helping them to move from pain to optimal health. And one of the reasons that I wanted to interview Rick is because he has a really interesting disposition when it comes to understanding the healing process and how we work through that process. That oftentimes when people are introduced to EFT, they're introduced through the lens of the 1-minute miracle. And there are lots of 1-minute miracles. I've seen it happen in my practice as well, but it really only happens a small percentage of the time. And so I wanted to talk to Rick about how he helps clients to understand what that healing process is and help them through it. So the first question I asked Rick was, how does he respond to a client when a client says, I have this really big emotional issue, how many sessions is it going to take?
Gene, what I have noticed is that some people have a big T trauma in their past, and it's really one thing. And for them, it has affected their health and their well-being and their sense of being good enough and happy enough that if you can release the energy of that one specific thing, or maybe it's just 3 specific things, but they're very specific, identifiable events that happened, and you do that, their energy system is otherwise very resilient, healthy, and if you address that with EFT, and they're at that ripe point in their life to accept that kind of shift in their experience, yeah, it's a 1-minute miracle. And I believe that at any given point, about 5% of the world population is ripe for that kind of 1-minute miracle. I also think that most of us, our lives have been more like, the game Chutes and Ladders, that there have been some things that have been very uplifting and things that have been negative life experiences, and there may be very many of those. Now, Gary Craig talks about those being the legs under the tabletop, but some of us have a variety of different things that occur to us that are all part of our energy, all the part of the way that we process life. And for us, EFT is more of a practice like showering in the morning and brushing your teeth. Or, for me, in terms of teeth care, I brush my teeth twice a day and I go to a dentist. So to me, EFT is energy therapy, as energy tapping, as a self-care tool for your emotions and your energy system. It's more of an ongoing process. And so while my goal with clients is to teach them this as a skill and use it on specific things that are ripe in their life at that moment, I do not present EFT as a 1-minute miracle. I believe that that is, again, true for about 5% of the population. That's just my number,
right,
based upon experience. But 90% of the population could really benefit from EFT as a self-care tool. About 10% of the population, I find, their energy is not really stimulated and connected with by the EFT process. Again, that's just my experience.
Right.
And I relax into those numbers knowing that, 1-minute miracles happen. I love that. But what I also find is that for those people that see a really big shift, that then they start moving forward into their life and they start stepping outside what used to be their old comfort zone. Now they have a new place that they want to expand into. They want to move up the vibrational scale. And when they do, they're consciously going to need to evolve. They're going to need to evolve their energy, their ability to interrelate with other people, and that's going to raise things that are part of our society, part of our culture. You may choose to break a cultural rule. EFT is perfect for that. You may choose to break an ancestral pattern of either disease or attitudes toward abundance. EFT is perfect for that. If you want to feel those vibrations, those emotions that are the most rich, the most enjoyable, well, usually there's some personal growth involved in getting there and also relaxing into enjoying them.
So as we take it as this process approach, it sounds like to me in the sense of evolution that you've probably seen with your clients where they come in with a particular issue, that they feel really angry when they're at work. And as you start to teach them this tool set and you start to show them as they work through that not only are they going to be doing work on that area, but other things are going to surface and all of a sudden their goal changes because they recognize other areas of their life they can change as well?
Certainly, and also one of the keys with EFT is always, what does this feeling remind you of? For example, a workplace issue with a woman and her boss, and I ask her, hey, who does his energy remind you of? And it's a father or an uncle or a third-grade school teacher. So the real core energy, the better doorway, is not necessarily what's happening right now. That's certainly in her face, but the energy was established. The energy pattern was established earlier. And going back and tapping on those specific events, often her vantage point changes about what's going on in the present. Her vibration changes, and by the law of attraction, she'll start attracting different things from someone. We all have the experience that if we feel submissive to someone, they treat us differently than if we feel they're equal. Even if they feel superior, if we know that we're their equal, well, we will extract different experiences from that person. That is some of the more subtle but profound changes that EFT creates when you take a low vibration. One of those slides I was talking about, oh man, when a man feels this way, my whole body goes back like I'm 4 years old again. And most people, if they tap on what happened when they were 4, they will start noticing that they don't feel 4 in the presence of that dominant energy or that person who's a little unstable. They start feeling surprisingly calm and confident. They've got a different foundation underneath them.
And so when you're working with your clients, do you ever spend time trying to help them become comfortable with that sense that this progress that I'm making is as much progress as I'm capable of making in this session today, knowing that I'm going to have these... I often
start tapping on, I need to be fixed, I need to change myself now, I'm not good enough where I am. The key of EFT is I deeply and completely accept myself.
Right.
That's saying, okay, we're right where I am okay. There's a lot of resistance on people's parts. So any softening of that, even just a few rounds is part of the session. And then teaching people about the vibrational scale, what it means when you're feeling angry. And it's not what most people think. What does it mean vibrationally when you're feeling despairing or grieving, and not trying to reach so far so fast?
And so that vibrational scale, is that just a sense of that I'm feeling better, or do you have a more organized approach to that vibrational scale where there's kind of some signposts along the way that we get a sense of which way we're moving in that?
If you look at whether it's the spiritual literature or the emotional literature, most people start talking about emotions, and I define emotions as energy of a certain vibration that we put a label on. For example, the color red is a vibration that our eyes look at, and we agree, unless you're colorblind, that that's red.
Right.
And so when I think of an energy like guilty, feeling guilty, we all kind of generally sense that that's on the side of that doesn't feel so good. It's bad. It's a bad feeling. It's not pleasing to us. There's a scale, and while the labels and where they fall on the scale vary, I really like the teachings of Abraham Hicks around the vibrational scale, and what I've done is I kind of chunked it up a little bit. They had a list of 30 emotions and in a sequential order.
Right.
I tend to look at it as we're in more general states, like disempowered at the low end and feeling peak experiences at the upper end. And I go from disempowered to inflamed to stressed to a connected state. Now that connected state is the acceptance. I deeply and completely accept myself as a very connected state, connected to heart, head, heart, and gut are in alignment in a connected state. Now from that state, you start having thriving experiences. And those are things that make you feel happy and curious and expectant and energized. Those types of energies are what people say that they want without understanding that they need that foundation of connected. That's where people that have taught meditation and mindfulness, those are all about creating the connected experience. Where I'm in the West, I like to have a juicy life. Those are thriving experiences. But without that connected platform, energy platform, what happens is that people get on a high and then they crash. They get on a high and then they crash. And when they crash, they want to be back on the high again. And so they'll do things like eat and drink and smoke and have sex and all that other stuff to try to get back that peak experience. They can't vibrationally hold on to it. EFT helps you if you've ever played the game Chutes and Ladders, you know that as you roll and spin your game, that you will hit occasionally some chutes. And they're like, oh no, I can't believe I'm back there. That's life. And EFT, if you address each of the chutes that come up in your life, interestingly enough, those chutes go away. And as you address different aspects that come up, those chutes go away. You will stop responding to it the same way. And that means that your foundation becomes more solid and your body can thrive. And then from thriving, the peak experiences, those are the ones like ecstasy and bliss and passion and joy and glee and euphoria. Well, those are naturally, I think, things that come out of living a thriving life. But we don't try to hold on to those. In fact, I believe a natural healthy balance is connected. Oh, I'm thriving. I'm connected, thriving, peak, thriving, connected. And that's more the cycle. We are cyclical. We need periods of rest and digest. And that's the other thing that people often do when they're trying to feel better, is that they expect that they should always be feeling happy, always be feeling loving, always be feeling guided and eager. Sorry. That's not the stable platform.
And as you lay that out, that's really beautiful. I like the way that happens. As you're working with your clients, is this something that you're keeping in the back of your mind as you're chatting with them and you're working with them over a number of sessions, and you can kind of see them moving from, the different stages moving up as they work towards grounded? Or is this something that you really consciously talk to them about as this is a tool that we can use to understand our process so that it's easy for us to see we truly are making progress?
Well, people that are not thriving are usually either disempowered, inflamed, or stressed. And I'll give you a perfect example. If somebody says, I'm just always down, and I say, well, do you ever get angry? Oh, yeah, I'm always angry. And I say, well, what happens after you feel angry? Well, I'm not supposed to feel angry. I feel guilty about being angry at that person. They're doing the best that they can, and they're back down again. Well, the vibrational scale says, if you're in a dark, dank basement and it's cold and there's roaches and there's a lot of icky feeling, wouldn't you like to have a nice little fire going?
Right. Yep.
Our source energy, the first sign of life force, is usually something that looks a lot more like blame and anger than it does the singing of angels. To me, in fact, a little good energy of fire coming up, that inflamed feeling, it reignites the inner fire. And from there, as long as you acknowledge, look, this feels better than being depressed, but you are at least self-aware enough to know that, okay, this is my own guidance saying I need some fire moving. I'm going to go off by myself. I'm going to tap. I'm not going to direct this into somebody else's life. It's not about them. It's about me feeling a little better, me feeling a little bit more empowered. People get this. When I heard this, I reinterpreted everything, Gene. If I tell my son to do something, I've just disempowered him. Why wouldn't he feel angry? Because feeling angry about it feels better than feeling like a slave in the dungeon.
Right.
So what I have learned is that if I'm getting anger back from someone, I just ask, well, how might they be feeling disempowered? And as you teach that to clients, they go, oh, okay, all right. So even though I'm angry and I feel guilty, I usually feel guilty about that. I deeply and completely accept that I feel better right now. Even though I want to string them up, that's kind of that vengeful feeling. Even though I want to string them up and pull his fingernails out, I deeply and completely accept all of my feelings. And when people acknowledge and start addressing the guilt and shame, which frankly is the ladder that takes people back down in the dungeon. The slide that takes them back down the dungeon. They climb up from anger and then they guilt and shame themselves back into the dungeon. And maybe there was a time when anger, they weren't safe. They did something that they are ashamed about, tapping on that specific event. Well, actually, I believe energetically make them safer, because now they're not working against that old energy.
Right.
And as they move up the scale, then, instead of always feeling angry, they'll find that they're frustrated and overwhelmed. That's in that stressed. It's still an unstable energy, Gene.
Right.
It's not a place where you can stand. It's got a lot of worry and overwhelm. But as you tap on those things and deeply and completely accept yourself, your feelings, and then maybe choose to feel surprisingly calm,
right,
and confident, guess what? Now that ceases to be the regular pattern.
And it sounds to me that when we have this framework of a scale to work from, it helps us to process our experience a little bit. Because I know that when I'm feeling really frustrated, I don't like that feeling of frustration.
No.
And I know that I need to be reminded that as bad as this frustration is, it's not as bad as the anger that you felt the last time you experienced this.
Or feeling ashamed of yourself, or
right,
feeling despairing that it was never going to get better.
Right.
The other thing, Gene, that I like about the vibrational scale that helps me personally and it's helped my family, it's helped my friends, it's helped my clients. If you are inflamed, everything that you look at is tuned to that channel. A puppy dog will inflame you, even though it doesn't make sense, because you're tuned to the anger channel. If you're feeling despair or lonely or insecure, those disempowered emotions, guess what? You're tuned to that channel. And to me, if I know that, it's a bit like I don't expect to hear the symphony on talk radio.
It almost sounds like, to use a different analogy of color, looking through like tinted glass.
Absolutely.
That if I'm looking through red tinted glass, I'm going to see everything in the world in shades of red, even if red isn't there, and it's going to affect the way that I perceive that and interact with it. And if I'm able to recognize that, then I can make different choices around that.
I believe if somebody is vibrationally either disempowered, inflamed, or stressed, their only job is to get to a connected place of simpleness, simple acceptance. You don't have to be happy. That's not what we're talking about. But you're awake. You're here now. You're a bit detached emotionally. And you're in a place where now you can receive some guidance. Your intuition is not cluttered by all the noise. If I make a decision from a place of anger, guess what? Chances are I'm going to attract more reasons to be angry and experience anger. If I get to a connected place, again, law of attraction at work, whether we like it or not, if I'm angry, I'm going to get more of that. If I'm worried, I'm going to get more things to worry about. I'll see different websites if I'm worried, I will see different articles and websites than if I am in a connected place. It's just the way it works. And those people who are the most self-observant, who have practiced this for a long time, can testify to this. People who have not had that experience, at least if they try it on, if you can get a client or yourself to say, hey, where was I on the vibrational scale today? Oh, yeah, I was stressed. Well, I was overwhelmed. Guess what? I kept getting more things that made me feel overwhelmed. Yeah, there you are. Law of attraction at work. Even though I was overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept myself anyway. And I feel that in my body. It's the other thing, Gene. Vibrations typically have certain areas of our body that they resonate with.
Right, absolutely.
Like, if you're overwhelmed, chances, are you going to feel it in a certain place in your body? As you start listening to body, even though I feel overwhelmed in my throat, I deeply love and accept my throat. And I give it permission to be surprisingly relaxed. You just tuned your throat to a different channel.
Right.
That's so powerful. And that allows you to start learning how to reach to the next level, and not try to reach too far too fast.
And so it sounds like that the first step in all of this is understanding that whenever we're in a place that we don't want to be emotionally, our first primary step isn't to peak. Our first primary step is to get back to connected. And once that's my teaching. And then once we get to connected, it allows us to start getting into the thriving and the glee and the joy and the peak experience because we have a sturdy foundation. And that's going to prevent us from doing these kind of up and down emotional highs and lows with all sorts of crashes, like we're just randomly drinking energy drinks all the time.
I can't tell you how many times people will have a peak experience and then be desperate to get back to it.
Right.
And not have an idea how to do that.
Right.
To me is, okay, firm up your foundation.
Okay.
If you want to climb Everest, there's a base camp.
Yep.
And it's important to have your act together at the base camp before you try to have the peak experience of climbing Everest. The same thing emotionally. If you do the shortcut, sometimes you can definitely get there.
Right.
There's certain drugs that will give people peak experiences. Interestingly enough, we all know that you're going to need more of that drug in order to get, quote, get back there, and eventually you won't. I don't think our biochemistry was designed to be peaking all the time. But, it's such a nice balance when you wean yourself off of stress using EFT to a connected, mindful place. Then everything is more delicious. Everything you eat, everyone you touch.
And so it sounds like, the first step is we're working our way, we recognize we're working our way towards ground. The second part of this is when we look at this scale, it gives us the ability to kind of see where we are and what we're going to pass through on our way to ground. And that helps us to understand the progress we're making. You mentioned really specifically, at the end of the day, doing reflection off of what's happened today. And I recommend this for my clients as well, to just kind of see what happened. And so if I look at it through the lens of this vibrational scale, it gives me a real specific tool to help me do that. So you agree with all that? Okay. And then the last question then is, for that, is there something that you share with your clients, or is there something you do yourself to help us do that in the moment? It's great at the end of the day when I'm able to reflect back and heal on the places that need healing from today. But there oftentimes in that anger and that frustration, I've made choices that I didn't want to make. And is there a way that I can deal with it before I get to the end of the day in this reflection?
That's where EFT as a practice makes all the difference. Just like meditation. Meditation is wonderful. I highly recommend it. 20 minutes twice a day. Not everyone has that to fit into their lifestyle.
Right.
Meditation, if you do it consistently, creates a gap between stimulus and response. Before your primitive brain kicks in and you ream him, or you cut the person off, or you flip on the finger, or you do something else that is embarrassing, unprofessional, and not who you really want to be, there's a gap. And meditation can do that. EFT can as well. If you apply it to the things post-stress, so to speak, and then you ask, well, what did that feeling that happened just before before my primitive brain kicked in, what was I feeling? What was the thing that made me want to either fight or flee or freeze in that situation? And you tap on those specific things, it creates a gap. It creates a sense of, oh, okay, I know how to deal with this differently. And I also strongly suggest that not just end of the day. What I tell people is drink plenty of fluid. I drink so much water that it surprises no one. In the middle of an all-day board meeting that I get up 7, 8 times, right?
Right.
I'm just drinking water. Guess what? I'm also going to the bathroom and I'm tapping. What am I feeling? Am I feeling stressed and open or open? I remember, Gene, I was in a board meeting and it wasn't going well. No one was in a resourceful state.
Right.
The situation was difficult, granted, but no one was in a really resourceful state. And I went and I spent 5 minutes tapping in the bathroom. When I came back, I could tell my vibration was different. It's like if everybody else is worried and you're not, you're confident, we as human beings will start tuning to the dominant vibration many times.
Uh-huh.
And what's interesting is 5 minutes later, I could feel the energy of the room shifting, and people became more resourceful. And we solved the problem, and we did it in a very surprising way. That's the promise of EFT is you don't have to fix everybody else. Fix your own vibration.
Absolutely.
Get your own vibration to a place where you're feeling surprisingly calm and confident, and then just allow yourself to radiate that out. It changes what you will draw personally, and it also changes groups.
And so inside that example there, in the way that when we change ourselves, it changes everything else, it sounds like you gave two specific things we can do. One is we can puncture our day where we're being very mindful where our emotional state is and cleaning that up if that needs to happen.
Yes.
The other thing was this idea of practice. And I like that word. And I think one of the things we don't do is we disassociate the sense of practice for something athletic and a spiritual practice as different things, and they're exactly the same. The sense of, you know, if I go into the gym and I shoot 50 free throws every single day, when I'm in a pressure situation of the game, because I've practiced it, it's easier for me to make the right physical motions to execute the free throw I want to. If I'm practicing my EFT on a very regular basis, when I get into the position where the emotional charge is rising, because of that practice, I have more resources in that moment to deal with it appropriately.
Beautifully said. I call it energetic resilience, emotional resilience, because what you've done is you have said, okay, when this energy comes up, I can be calm and confident. If this energy comes up, I know how to be calm and confident. When this energy comes up, I know how to be intuitive. And through that practice, which never ends,
right,
but it does become more autonomic. I do not have to tap on the things that I used to tap on.
Right.
But the new things that show up in my life, the things that interest me, yeah, I do. And it builds resilience. It expands our ability to be out at the leading edge and have a surprising comfort zone. Can you tell I like the word surprise? It's
Absolutely.
one of my driving emotions. I look for things that are surprising, and I'm curious. Those are thriving emotions for me. And anything that takes me out of those it gives me a ladder down into stress. I look at it and say, oh, okay, well, how could I be more resilient? It's a bit like you're shooting those free throws. If you keep ending up and banging off the right side, yeah, you'll figure it out.
Right.
We all do, if we're paying attention. And so, yes, spiritual practices, energy practices, done every day, done with some diligence and observation, not to fix yourself, but to make you more resilient, more vital, more alive, more present in the now. I'm right here. I'm right now. I know I can always get back to connected. Now what?
Is there, as we look at this sense of trying to go too far too fast and understanding this process, is there anything else that you want to add that we didn't cover?
My sense, Gene, is that most people that are attracted to EFT, we do start with it with some specifics in mind. I was attracted to EFT by this concept of emotional freedom. Freedom to me means that I know that no matter what comes my way, that I can get back to a place where I feel safe, connected. EFT, of all the things that I've looked at, energy tapping and this type of approach, where you honor what's come up, you're honest about it, even though I feel this, and you head in that direction of simple connection. I'm okay, right here, right now. Emotional freedom, those people that are attracted to EFT and this type of process, I believe are asking at a deeper level for that level of freedom, not just for a fix for this. And that's my assumption when I work with someone, is that if they can learn to quiet the noise using a tool like EFT, that their guidance will take them wherever they want to go. And whatever noise is coming up is an opportunity to exercise our energy system, our emotions, become more resilient. We don't wail against the exercise machine because it has a lot of weight on it and that we can move the adjuster on it. If we wail at our lives, we're just down and disempowered, okay? If that's where you are, maybe you can get angry about it. But at some point, you'll look at it and say, yeah, these things do make me stronger, especially if I address them honestly and with some skill, and also with some support. While EFT is wonderful to have at your fingertips, I have coaches. I have people that when my vibration is sliding, I know people I can call to tap with. Because if I'm tuned to a channel that isn't connected, I like knowing that there's some good, strong people that I can use to do that. It could be a tapping buddy.
Yeah.
It could be a coach. It could be a highly skilled professional. It can be someone who you can tap with and tap in front of and feel safe. If you can feel safe with them, that's a good sign.
Cool. Very good. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Gene.